Do you want to talk about empty nesters? The empty nest syndrome? What is it? I don't even know what that is. Like, what does that even mean?
What does empty nester mean?
That your kids
Well,
are
I know what empty nester means, but what is the empty nest syndrome? And what does that mean?
I think for myself, when my house was empty, like I had to rediscover what I like to do.
Oh,
Because my whole life revolved. Either I was taking someone to a basketball game or a baseball game, or we doing homework, or you had things within the high school, or, you know, you were always caring for somebody, nurturing somebody, doing something, and then you're not. But I want to add a caveat to that. I also ended up starting to care for my grandmother. So I think my empty nester came a little later when she left, meaning she moved to Florida. And then I really was just at the time, me and now my ex-husband. So then you have to, if you haven't had that connection, now you're just two people living in a household. So I think that is something that people don't think about, or they know to work on while they have children, but they don't always do that.
right. How many years married were you before you had kids, Michelle?
Okay, so I had my children actually in my first marriage.
Oh, okay.
And so I was married 3 years when I had my children.
Mhm.
And then when I remarried in my second marriage, I ended up with 2 stepdaughters, and I had who lived with us, and my 2 boys. So I ended up with 2 teenage daughters while my boys were young.
Right.
And then so we got them off, and then my children grew.
Right. Right.
And him and I did not have children together.
Right. What about you? What about you, Tracy G?
a couple of years, and we just recently went through the empty nesting thing where it was like a big impact. They both left at the same time, and it was like a hole in our family. It was so noticeable, and I was just beside myself. You know, my husband did it in his way, but I was just a blubbering idiot. And, you know, all my friends rallied around me like, are you okay? Are you okay? Because I didn't know how much it would affect me. And then Tracy gave me some advice. Yeah. That helped me get through it. And when we came out on the other side, when they both were gone, we actually really enjoyed our time together. We were getting into this new, exactly what you said. It took a bit, not like just about a month between them leaving and that, where we got into this really amazing rhythm of, hey, we're really enjoying each other. But right now they're all back. So
that's the thing with empty nest. It never stays that way, right? It's like, okay, they're gone for a little bit and then they're back.
Yeah. But that was just because COVID and you came home early and you're leaving later and all this stuff. But definitely, if you don't have, I think if you don't have a strong relationship and you focus on the kids and you haven't focused a little bit on your relationship, I think it's going to be hard.
But
it'll show up, I think, right? I think it'll show up. Yeah.
Show up. Yeah.
But I think you also have to remember to, I do agree you need to concentrate on the relationship, but you also have to concentrate on yourself also. Because I think a lot of times parents, because I'm going to say parents, husband and wives, get lost in caring for their family and their children, that they lose a little bit on the relationship and also lose some of themselves.
Yeah. And I think that is certainly, I think it can be harder for that stay-at-home mom who has made a choice to either leave the workforce or whatever to bring up the family and take care of the family from the house. I think the effects of children leaving could be felt even stronger by those women.
Let's say stay-at-home parent, because there are now dads that stay home.
Yeah, stay at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
good shout out. Yeah. Stay
So-
at home parent.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I think when you have, when you're in that role, it's everything, right? It's like,
Mhm,
it's a lot different than combining, you know, your career and your parenting and all of those things all together. Not that one's better than the other. I'm not trying to imply that at all. So, yeah, I just think it would be different. My experience was I went to work, and, you know, had my daughter and brought her up while I went to work. So I can't speak on that other level. I'm just talking about friends of mine who have gone through that experience. So
Mhm.
I
And that's-
also waited 10 years before I had kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I
No,
didn't have time to wait. I had to get on it.
no, I married young, so, and I had children young. So I think for me, it was a little bit of growing up everything because I married young and I had children young. So then when I was an empty nester, I think there was a lot of growing up because I was,
Right.
you know, so I actually went from my parents' house to married, to divorced with children, to married. And then when I divorced, it was really the first time I was alone. So that was, yeah, a big learning.
I bet you that was a big change, and just that feeling, right? And
Yeah.
really counting on yourself now. You're really looking to you for answers.
Yes. So for me, it was a lot of change.
Yeah, so I had kids later in my just before I was 34. I can't remember. I have to ask my kids when I had kids. And so I had time before to kind of get to know me. And then we chose to have me work, but stay at home just based on what we did. So I was able to kind of do that hybrid corporate stay-at-home mom thing, which for me worked out really well, and for our family. And I think that was also part that it hit me really hard, was I was always around them. Right? I
Yes.
didn't take during the day and leave and get used to them not being around. Instead, they were always around and I was always around them. So that was a bit of a challenge too, which I think goes to what you were saying, Tracy, about when you're a parent and you're at home, you do notice it.
Yeah.
Not that you don't notice
But-
it if you work. I'm
Yeah,
not saying
no,
that.
for sure. It's
And that's
it's
what I was just
obviously a
gonna
different
ask you.
experience. Yeah.
Tracy E., that's just what I was going to ask you. So yeah, you know, you had your daughter and you still worked, but there still had to be a dynamic change when it was just you and your husband again.
Yeah, I want to say yes and no, because in reality, what happened for me was I sort of actually, or we got used to the idea of her not being around for very short periods of time. So like she went off to college and then came home, and then she decided that she was going to go out to a different province. She went out to BC and worked. And she did that for like 2 or 3 months, and then came back and then was home for a bit. And then she went out for a longer period. And that's where she met her husband. And then she came back, and then she was going to move to England. So it was like, okay. When she moved to England, that's when it really sort of hit me. It was like, oh, like this is a lot harder to go visit than just like,
Right.
off to BC. I'm going to go to BC and visit my daughter for a while, right? It was really funny because it was said in tongue in cheek, but it actually worked out this way. When she left home the very first time to go out to BC, I had said to her, well, I'm going to need to see you at least every 6 months. So like, I'm going to show up on your doorstep, regardless of where you are, every 6 months. So just so you know that, like, count on it. And it sort of worked out that way. That's exactly what I did. In fact, a funny story, when she met her husband and she moved to England, they decided to do some world travel trips, and so they were traveling through Africa. He has an aunt that lived in Africa, and it was right near Christmas time, right near my 6 month I got to show up. And I was asking the kids, so like, what's next after Africa? They were going to Australia, then they're going to go to Belize and whatever. They actually thought I was going to show up in Belize because I'd always said that's a place that I wanted to go to. So this aunt, actually, it was just so funny because I had sent an email to this aunt saying, I just want to thank you so much for like opening your doors to my daughter for Christmas and all this stuff. And she said, why don't you come out and visit? And so I sent her back an email. It was a one-liner. I said, don't say that unless you're serious. And I literally flew to Africa for like 5 days and then came back because I was like, yes, I'm definitely going to go see my kid.
Awesome.
So it was the best surprise because we were supposed to FaceTime. Zoom wasn't around then, but we were supposed to FaceTime on the day I arrived or whatever in the afternoon. And I they didn't have any idea I was coming, and I walked in and like my daughter just looked at me and I went, this is how you FaceTime, just saying. So it was the best ever. So
I love it.
So yeah, I sort of feel, and then I mean, they were in England for a while, but like we did, we're very fortunate. We have a wonderful relationship with our in-laws. So like we go visit them and stay with them. They come here, they stay with us. So I was very fortunate in that I didn't feel like she was ever gone for very long. And I mean, now she lives literally right around the corner from me. So I've never really felt that longing of, oh, she's gone, she's like, and zero access. I mean, obviously my parents, when kids moved away, it was way different because the world was a lot smaller. You couldn't just, get on a flight and go someplace or get on a train and go someplace. It was a lot harder because distances just seemed so much bigger. And I just thank my lucky stars that I'm born when I was born, and it was a very gradual empty nest thing for me. It was not a hard, okay, I'm out, see ya. Gone.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. It was just a nice little gradual.
It was just perfect. It was literally perfect. So all you kids listening out there, it's a good way to do it.
And I think we brought up some really key points. That one is always the relationships that you're having with your partner, that has to be key. And when I mean key, it's, people talk about date nights. They talk about ending your day, having 20 minutes to talk to each other, how your day went, communication. That is like key. That is really key because it keeps you connected, that you don't get so engrossed with just your children aspect of it.
Yeah.
And also finding yourself. Don't get lost in your children. Don't be your children. Like, you see people get so engrossed in what their children's activities are. I agree and believe in supporting your children's activities, but they're your children's activities. They're not your activities, So that's what I take from empty nesting.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.